So I have dropped back into the original State of Decay, which is actually really, really unfamiliar to me in a lot of ways. It used to be that Brant and I would get on this stream and we would just play State of Decay 1 all the time. We both got to be really, really used to how this game worked. We felt like experts. But I spent my lunch break playing this game again, and it is weird how unfamiliar it is after spending so many years playing State of Decay 2. But luckily, even though I am still fairly unfamiliar with this game again, I've got a couple of experts with me who actually know a lot more about the history of this game than I did. I joined this team right after this game was released, but Dave Dunniway at the top of the screen and Brant Fitzgerald have been here for much, much longer than I have. So, Dave, so you were an environment artist on this team. What does that mean that you actually did?
Well, lots of, pretty much if it wasn't a character or the UI, I had some hand in it, whether it was modeling it or working, tuning the LODs for it, or animating like a wall getting destroyed, or actually going in the map and doing set dressing and landscaping and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, like building the world and all the vegetation and making it all in such a way that it runs well is how it's all done.
Oh, crap, I'm out of ammo. So, and actually, I think you mentioned right before the stream, you mentioned that this barn here is actually is one of the things you contributed to this game. And we have a barn like this right next to the base, but models of this barn are actually everywhere in the game.
Yeah, that's the barn I grew up with. I grew up on a farm in Eastern Washington, and so yeah, that barn is actually the barn that I grew up with in my backyard and modeled it out and put it in the game. And it's sort of like tagged along like it's in State of Decay 2 also.
So yeah, I feel like a lot of the stories that I heard when I joined the team were about how the artists who worked on this game, a lot of you had ties to the rural Pacific Northwest, and a lot of you had like really strong like nostalgic feelings about this place. I know that like Doug Williams also had a lot of those feelings about this. Did it feel kind of cool to be sort of recreating this world that was so personal to you?
Yeah, no, obviously it was the fun part because I mean most people when they think of Washington they immediately think of Seattle and the traditional Pacific Northwest that's all green and overgrown and there is that but over in Eastern Washington it's very different. It's a lot drier and more arid and everything has small towns and stuff have a very different feel, and so we wanted to bring that vibe into this and share that kind of that Eastern Washington vibe that's definitely unique and isn't very well showcased in as far as like how Washington is in as a whole.
That's one of the things that was tough for me to get used to when I came back to State of Decay 1 was just like there were some basic sort of differences in the way the world works. One thing, I think a lot of the audience will recognize this. Oh no! I'm trying to drive through a fence and it does not work. And in fact, I've got my car stranded now. That's fine. This car was breaking anyway.
That's a death sentence for that car, by the way.
Yeah, I know this car is just screwed now. But yeah, the fences don't break. And there's just sort of a lot of those sort of like basic quality of life things in State of Decay 2 just weren't even possible here. Because I mean, this was an Xbox 360 game, and so there was just a lot of limits on what was possible. In fact, like Dave, like what are some of the advantages that you actually got when we moved to the more modern technology of like the Xbox One when we were making State of Decay 2 that you didn't have when you were building this environment?
Yeah, well, this was all done in the CryEngine, and we just off the shelf got the Crytek engine and figured all this stuff out. And we were limited, being an Xbox Live game, we were limited to a 2 gig file size limit also. So like the game, we couldn't put it couldn't be a very big game at all. And so yeah, it was all that Xbox 360 tech and stuff. It was still kind of cool because it was the CryEngine, and CryEngine was really fun to play in. It did all all that cool tech that came out of the Crysis games and stuff was in there that you got to play with, and things like time of day and stuff just worked, which was nice, and yeah, like the lighting and atmospherics and stuff the game always looked good, which was good. And then, yeah, in State of Decay 2, we switched over to Unreal, and then that's when shader technology kind of changed, and so like how we describe surfaces and textures and stuff fundamentally changed with State of Decay 2, and so that's why like State of Decay 1, everything's kind of got this. It's still kind of got that old school cartoony look and stuff. As we didn't, you had just a color map, like a bump map and a spec map, and that's all you got, and you were limited on texture sizes and all the rest. So
and we really didn't get to use that spec map very often because we get yelled at.
Was it just really expensive performance-wise?
Oh, any additional map or any additional texture had to get loaded, and we had to cull a lot of those back to get it to run even as well as we did.
So I've got a missing character right now, which is making me sad. I don't even remember which of these missions is likely to have involved them. So I'm gonna head out. You know, actually, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go out and try to get some plastic sheeting. Unless, wait, is it over here? I'm gonna go out and get some plastic sheeting while we keep talking. So right now I'm in the middle of the farmlands. Was this kind of your, because you grew up in the, in the farmlands of the real world, was this your favorite area to work on, or were there some other areas that sort of stood out to you in the original Trumbull Valley map that were sort of favorite places for you to create and work on?
I'm a big fan of Marshall's downtown strip, like that. That kind of really turn of the century brick building look that is pretty common in some of the small towns in Washington. Like capturing that area was really kind of cool. Because that's really what those old towns, from the 1920s and 30s and stuff, and the mining towns all look like with their brick facades and the 2- and 3-story limit and stuff like that. Like all that downtown Marshall was, when the murals on the side of the wall, that's just random murals that that were 60, 70 years old. That kind of stuff was always fun to make.
Yeah, I'm gonna head down there right now so we can see it. Let me make sure that I actually remember where I'm going. I was
just in Eastern Washington this weekend, visiting my family farm, and drove through Palouse, Washington, which is basically they copied our State of Decay, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It is interesting, by the way, after having played so much in sort of the updated version of Trumbull Valley that we added to State of Decay 2, for a long time, I had just ingrained in my memory what this map looks like, how to navigate around this part of the world. And now I've replaced a lot of that with State of Decay 2's Trumbull Valley. And so coming back here, I'm I'll look at an intersection, I'm like, is this where I need to turn? I'm not sure. Because it's interesting how just subtle differences in the visuals can just sort of can mess with your memory. But this is kind of taking me back to 10 years ago when I played this game for the first time as a player. Learning this little turn here that takes you into East Marshall. Wait, was it, or this West Marshall? West Marshall.
Turning me off with it was the camera, like how the camera zooms in and out based on your speed, and when you walk into a building, how your character really slows down and the camera gets in tight, and it's very dramatic. The camera action. Yeah, the game it did feel like it had a little bit of sort of a different pace from State of Decay 2. State of Decay 2, I feel like I could just sort of once I really know what I'm doing, I can just sort of be moving at a fast pace at all times. Whereas this game, it definitely sort of encourages you to sort of slow down and play more, I guess, more at a kind of like a languid, sort of peaceful sort of pace until things kick off, and then it gets pretty intense. So yeah, we've got all of these old building facades, the Red Engine cigar shop, the old time laundromat. We've so many of these signs and things. Yeah, just things we just made up. Just putting the donut shop right next to the police station. They were just kind of these fun little jokes that we got to insert here and there. I hadn't caught on to that. Oh, that's really funny. I had no idea that was going. I never noticed that. That's great. That was one of the first buildings that was actually made. For the game was the whole police station donut shop ensemble. Oh, that's funny. So tell us a little bit about sort of the order in which you built stuff. What was the earliest stuff that you built? What was the stuff that came in last? So our first demo that we showed Microsoft to get kind of green lit for real was the Wilkerson mansion. So that whole mission of being in the mansion, getting sieged, having to board up the boards, that was a self-contained little mission that was used as our demo to Microsoft, and so we built all that out and did the siege and all that. And then round two was this right here, doing downtown Marshall. Like we kind of like I think it was like a 6 months push that we just kind of got downtown Marshall all done. You could drive up to it with guns blazing, and you could throw grenades and jump through windows and start killing zombies and stuff. And that was like. And then once we had that, it was just sort of filling the rest of the map out. Like we just started riffing on it from there. And then it was getting the beginning of the game in, the campground and the church and the whole intro area. And then, so we had like, Marshall was I think first, and then we had Spencer's Mill, and then we did the fairgrounds the fairgrounds and everything, the end game and the Basalt Canyon stuff, and just started fleshing out the interior and stuff with all the farmland.
So I'm actually going to head up towards the Wilkersons so that we can, take a look at that.
I got a little bit of Easter egg trivia. The original name for Danforth, which is off in the distance.
Yeah, can I see it from here? I'm not even sure. Probably not. I probably have to be in Fairfield.
You have to be a little farther over, I think. But the original name was Dunniway.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, all the town names and all the stuff had all the people working on the game's names and stuff in it.
Marshall was McMillanville.
McMillanville, yep.
So did you all decide to change that just because you kind of didn't want to like have your names plastered all over everything?
I think it's just I think it was like one of those things that you didn't realize. Like, when do you stop doing it and why? So it's better just cut it and just go, no, we're not going to do that. Let's just make up names.
And I did a little bit of that in Breakdown. Some of the characters from Breakdown are named after like family members of mine and stuff like that, just because that's fun to do. But if you take it too far, it just starts to get weird, right? So. Oh, hey, we've got our first Cleo mission. Oh, that's fine. So that Cleo was not a part of the game on release. That was something we added for the Year One Survival Edition. I almost feel guilty including Cleo in this demonstration.
You keep an eye out for something like a transmitter or a beacon.
I'm trying to find the road to the Wilkersons. Did I already pass it? No, it's right here.
Oh.
Right here. Again, like I'm really used to the way it looks in State of Decay 2, so I keep being paranoid that I'm missing something. No, I think this is the route up to the Wilkersons.
Don't go fast.
So there's Mount Tanner up there, which looks really, it looks really nice. Kind of, I remember how nice it looks in State of Decay 2, but it looks really nice in this game too, especially, considering the limitations that we had, 2 generations of hardware ago. Like, you guys really achieved a really nice atmosphere and a world that looks bigger than it is, because you've got all these nice, things on the horizon, just making the world feel expansive.
Yeah, the map layout is really well done. Like it's pretty tickled like how everything turned out. It does feel good to run around and things have a good distance without being annoying.
So there was a period of time where this was the map of State of Decay right here. Like, just getting inside this thing, getting into a siege, boarding up the windows. Actually, so we've got a question from Guru Gaming. They want to know, what State of Decay 1 features do we get the most requests for to include in State of Decay 2? I think boarding up windows might be on the top of that list. And that was so...
Yeah, I think it is.
Interesting.
It was one of those things that fully embraced the zombie fantasy thing. And I was sad when we decided not to include it in State of Decay 2 for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I can definitely see why you guys would have put that in the original demo, because it was such an evocative, like, you really know you're in a zombie apocalypse movie if you're boarding up windows with zombies coming in from the outside. Like, that really makes it feel like that. Even if, in State of Decay 2, we ended up not being able to justify it because, we were coming right down to the wire. We had very few resources, and it was one of those things where it's like, it's not essential to the game, and so it's just evocative of the experience, and so we cut it. But, you're absolutely right that this is one of those things where when you imagine living in the zombie apocalypse, you imagine that this is one of the things that you're doing, and it's part of the player fantasy. So I'm not surprised the players asked for it.
one of the things it's really janky, right? Because you're just banging randomly and then a board appears. We didn't have the resources to have you grab a pile of lumber and fix it up. So this was really gamey, and didn't have a good way to mitigate that.
Yeah, like you're not sure where the wood's coming from exactly. It's just
Yeah.
pulling it out of your bag of holding. But that's fine. Look, honestly, it probably, I feel like the decor of this house is better with the, I'm honestly like kind of shocked that the Wilkersons lived here. I mean, come on.
This is the most hated building prop in all of State of Decay from the dev point of view, because it just exposed so many problems. Things like the fact that it's elevated off the ground caused us endless trouble.
Oh yeah, because zombie sharking was a really big deal.
Yes.
Do you want to explain what sharking is now while I fight these zombies that are going to definitely kill me?
The result of sharking is when you see like a zombie partially stuck under the ground. Sometimes you'll only see their head. Sometimes you'll see their head and shoulders moving around like they're swimming through the ground. And one of the major causes of that with the Cry engine was it was trying to spawn zombies in that house, and because it was off the ground, it was finding the ground. But then, as soon as it spawned the zombie, it realized there was collision above it, so it jammed it into the ground. So the amount of time I spent personally trying to bulletproof that against sharking, we probably could have done 3 more maps.
So Fabian C wants to know, what are Spencer's Mill and Mount Tanner named after, if anything?
I don't think they are named. I think they were just
Nicknames?
Yeah, they're the kinds of names that you'd find in, like Spencer's Mill, especially. When the pioneers came out west,
Crap.
anybody could name a plot of land that they had claim to, and so often you get really interesting names, right? And Spencer's Mill just described what was the first thing there in that area, which was a mill up on the hill. Probably, Emmett Spencer or something was the guy's name. So, that kind of thing. If you drive around like rural Washington or places like mining country in Idaho, you'll find just crazy weird names.
I need a breather.
Somebody decided to rest their horse someplace, and then they name it after that event.
After the horse, yeah.
Right.
I forgot.
Rest.
By the way, I forgot what happens if I get in a car and I'm supposed to be transporting 2 people, and I just drive off and leave one of them behind. What happens? I used to know the answer to this.
I think she'll try to just run after you.
Yeah, she'll try and keep up with you.
Woohoo! We'll just leave her behind. Hopefully nothing too bad happens.
It was always a real risk, even more of a risk in State of Decay 1, because we had some wicked pathing bugs in this game where NPCs, when trying to follow you, would go all the way to Mount Tanner and then try to find you after that. So if you were waiting for that NPC, it might be 20 minutes before they actually made it all the way up and back.
I'm going to try to go back and get that woman that I left behind now that I've got a Norma. By the way, the Norma is one of the few vehicles that has made it through, it was in both State of Decay 1 and State of Decay 2. I mean, this vehicle is such a classic. There's no way to make a State of Decay game without it, right?
Yeah. I think it is named after a character from a Romero.
Oh, no!
Oh.
It was actually from the 1994 remake of Dawn of the Dead, named after the woman who drove up in a truck, and that's why her character was named Norma, and she drove up in a panel van. But Macmillan decided to name it Norma because it was a truck.
See, so I love how into zombie movies that like you and James and a lot of the original folks on the team were, that like you could get lots of references like that because you just knew those references, from your love of the genre.
Here's one of the biggest references we ever did right here. This yard.
Oh, right. I forgot
it.
where this yard was.
Yeah.
So tell me about this yard. What should people be recognizing in this yard?
Well, this is the Plants vs. Zombie yard because you've got the sunflowers and then the lawnmowers and the line of dead zombies, and that's also where the Conehead zombie Easter egg came from.
Yeah, the road cone.
Oh yeah, so you got the road cone right there next to the zombie bodies. You've got the lawnmower that went over a zombie. You've got the other lawnmowers just waiting. You got the sunflowers. This is great. This is one of my favorite. I had forgotten where it was, but this has always been one of my favorite references that this game had.
When I would come home, I was renting the basement room from James McMillan, who was the sort of the world artist here originally. And I would come home from working late, and James would still be up with a pad and pencil in hand, writing down every possible reference he could from a number of like obscure zombie games.
Yeah, I remember the fact that the skills like this, the sort of the instead of being called, I don't know, stamina or something, or like dexterity, your sort of athletic skill is called cardio, because that's a reference to Zombieland. And I remember, like, as a player, getting that and being like, oh, wow, these people are really plugged in. They're not just making some zombie game because they heard that zombies are cool. Like, these are people who really pay attention to zombies. Like, they care about this stuff. And it really mattered to me as a player.
Yeah, Zombieland was a big influence. I mean, obviously the homage with the car door being able to hit the zombie, and then finishing off in the fairgrounds with the Ferris wheel and all that kind of stuff. That was all homage to Zombieland.
Okay, so one thing that is different between State of Decay 1 and State of Decay 2. In State of Decay 2, we accidentally made it so that you didn't lose any speed when you were tired. In State of Decay 1, that is not the case. My character is in deep trouble if a zombie starts chasing her right now. At least she's got some backup. Hopefully, let's get to a car and get these people home, because one of my other playable character was actually missing when I tried to switch to him. And so hopefully one of these two is going to be playable when we get back, and I'll be able to switch to give Judge Lawton here a rest. So, by the way, the reason I'm playing Breakdown, so this version of the game that I'm playing right now is Breakdown, which was not shipped with the original State of Decay. This is an alternate version of it. The reason I wanted to play Breakdown was just because it's very story light, and it gives you the run of the map, so that, for instance, if we wanted to go and look at Fairfield and see if we could see Danforth off in the distance, that's something I could do on this stream right now. Whereas if we were playing the original State of Decay, that entire section of the map is blocked off. Until you've sort of earned your way there. So Breakdown was kind of one of the first big things that I got to work on the team. But it is really, really different. But I think the reason why Breakdown works the way it does is because, because we wanted to do a version of the game that could be played endlessly. That didn't sort of, we've got it from here. They didn't sort of run out of stuff, because in State of Decay, you search a place, and then that place it no longer has any stuff in it, and it stays that way. And the thing that was interesting for me just joining the team was, we suggested, like, oh, well, what if we did a version where the loot respawns? What if we did a version like this or like that? But Jeff Strain was very, very serious. No, when you loot something, that's it. It's gone. You can't have it back. And so this game, setting it up so that the consequences of your actions were permanent, that was a huge part of what made this game work. And I love that about it. When I realized how important it was to the team to make all of the players' actions have real consequences, that just made me even more excited about working on it. Now, I just heard some weird noises. Did Kevin just show up?
Kevin's here. Yes, hello.
Hey there, Kevin. So Kevin, I should reintroduce you. Kevin is he is a creative director at Undead Labs, but he historically has been an audio director on the State of Decay franchise for ages. And so, Kevin, you were primarily responsible for a lot of the audio, and especially the soundtrack of State of Decay 1 and State of Decay 2. Do I have that right?
You do.
And so, ironically, I'm getting a lot of background noise from your microphone, despite you being the audio guy.
Well, I'm on my laptop. Let me see if I can find a better room or something like that. Hold on.
Okay, no, that's totally fine. And if this is the version of you we get, it's the version of you we get, and that's totally fine. We're happy to have you here. I'm going to switch to be Marley. She is our new recruit, and she is actually going to be in good condition, unlike Judge Lawton. I'm going to go get her equipped. So one thing that was really different about State of Decay 1 versus 2 was that you actually had each individual character had to... Oh, what? Oh, she's got a stuffed hippo? I didn't... Wait, hold on a second. I thought that the stuffed hippo in like Homecoming was a newly like invented thing for Homecoming. I didn't realize there was a stuffed hippo in State of Decay 1. That is nuts.
There it is.
Holy cow, I had completely forgotten about that. That is crazy. So she's shown up with a bunch of distractions, which is kind of cool. Let me see if I can... So the individual characters had to buy things out of the supply locker with influence. And so, like, right now, we've got 82 influence, so I can only afford some of these weapons. I'm going to grab that gun, because that gun is silly. And let me see if I can afford a couple of Molotovs and some codeine. Sure, let's just grab some codeine, because that's good for you.
The influence was originally meant to sort of underline the community aspect of this, right? Because you were basically borrowing that item from everyone in the community.
Yeah, it's like you're trying to simulate sort of the the experience of being an individual in a community rather than the experience of being a community in a larger world. Which is it's like you kind of stepped up the scale a little bit with State of Decay 2.